Hello and welcome to Forever Wild, the environmental education television program in Horry County School District. Today we have got a fantastic special guest out here. His name is Ronnie Floyd. He's going to be showing us some primitive technology, and since it is going into fall right now, it's a good time to kind of talk a little bit about some of the things, maybe creating heat and things of that nature that the primitive peoples of this continent did before Christopher Columbus arrived. So let's go over here and let's talk to Ronnie Floyd and see what he has to offer about some primitive skills. And he's going to explain a little bit about that. What is primitive technology?
Well, I guess it's a coined phrase to mean a lot of it is pre-metal, you know, pre-blacksmithing, that type of thing, and it's just a way to talk about the technological advances and techniques used, but with not metal tools exactly.
Okay.
And some of the technologies that were used to do daily tasks that we don't normally think of as technologies. Today we think of technologies being computers and electronic gizmos and that type of thing, but some of these things are highly advanced and developed skills that pretty much can't be improved upon even to date.
I'll be darned. So a lot of the things that we use today come from this kind of background in history.
Definitely, and I teach that with kids, and all you think about even the simple thing as a basket. There's not a house around that doesn't have several baskets around, how useful they are. We have backpacks today. And
neat.
So some of those little things, and steak knives with serrated edges. I mean, that's been around. Spider code knives with serrations and stuff. That technology's been around for thousands of years, and we're just kind of rediscovering some of those things.
Well, I see here you have a lot of equipment here on the ground that you use for a lot of your displays and whatnot. Can you take us through some of these things and some of the primitive techniques?
I will. Today I'll be showing a friction, or maybe two different types of friction fires that were done here in North America, as well as flint and steel later. I may try to go into a little bit more about flint and steel as well, and if we have time, we'll get a little deeper into a couple other topics. But fire is probably one of the most important skills or inventions that was developed by mankind. Because without fire, we couldn't even have metal today. And you can imagine no telephones, no computers, no airplanes, no skyscrapers, and no four-wheelers, no cars. You know, so fire gave us the ability to create steel. So if you look at it from that point of view, a little old campfire that you roast marshmallows on has a pretty powerful history. So I guess we'll go from there.
Okay, let's see what you got now.
Certain woods work well here in the southeast, and I actually wrote them down so I don't forget any that I've used. And you'll read some books that mention a lot of others, but these are ones that are fairly ready, available in the southeast. I've worked with, let me turn this over, Ian. Probably the first one I learned on was up in Boone, where I got my start with this, with Eustace Conway at Turtle Island. And Preston Roberts worked with me with a fire. I like to give the people that's taught me credit. And I started on white pine, and I got real good with it. But of course, here in the southeast, you don't find a lot of white pines growing around. So after I got proficient, then I started reading and learning more, and I started delving into the woods that are local to me. And that's what a good survivalist will do. That's what the Indians were, just masters of adaptation. They didn't try to conquer their environment. They lived with what they had and did the best they could with what they had. And so my next step was red cedar, which is really a juniper. And so in it works really well, and it's good for a lot of stuff. It's even kind of a sacred plant as well. Sassafras was my next one. You can find sassafras around here more readily available even than cedar, because most of your cedars are being cut. Then I went on to cypress not long ago, and this driftwood cypress I'm using now, it's a tree that's been dead for maybe 100 years or so, floating up and down the river. And it's even improved its qualities by aging it and kind of, I guess, controlled rotting it slightly. But it's made it an incredible material to use. I've used poplar, and we'll dive into that some more, I think.
Yeah, what are the properties that make a good firewood, so to speak?
Non-resinous, yellow pines, of course. I've heard of one guy I know that says he's made a fire with that, but why would you want to try? I mean, you know, even a book I reread some of my material last night. It says, why would you want to spend that much energy and effort trying to make a fire if you're, you know, hungry or whatever out in the wilderness? Why would you want to spend that much effort to make a fire on something there's 10 other things around are much easier.
Right.
So you just want something that's kind of non-resinous, especially like the yellow pine, if you think about that gooey sap, and light and fluffy. Your hardwoods like oaks and things like that, it's just super hardwood, you know, they're not going to work that well. It's not they can't work, but they're just not very suitable.
How could you find a fluffy wood? Explain fluffy to me. Is it, how would you
It's
guess
just
something?
real light, kind of like basswood. They say a lot of times you stick your thumbnail in it and that type of thing, but I just got where I can tell from feeling it, you know. I'm one of the I'm one of the few people right now. A couple of my friends use Confederate rose, but I was trimming my wife's Confederate rose in the backyard one day, and as I was pruning it back, cutting it back and everything, I said, gosh, this wood feels like it has the right qualities, light and fluffy and kind of corky feeling even. Now, cedar's a little bit harder wood when you feel it compared to that, but it's still not resinous enough to matter. But I sat down right there pruning my wife's bush and peeled some bark off, and lo and behold, it made neat rope. It's not real strong, but easy to get the bark off. And I sat down there and drilled out a hand drill fire in a couple of minutes, and I was like, whoa, a little discovery here. And
that's neat.
I still don't know the technical name of it, but it's Confederate rose, and like I said, I just look for certain qualities, and I experiment a lot. And
so you placed some things down here just a second ago. You just a little plop, plop with your hands. What is that?
Well, I was getting everything ready, and that's a good thing to talk about right now is what do you need to do this. This is called a bow drill simply because we're turning the spindle, the drill bit with a string, with a bow.
Okay.
And we're probably increasing the revolutions per minute, thousands. You know, what I can do with this. This is like a big motor here. It enables me to spin that drill bit super fast. Much more than I can do with my hands, but with the hand drill you use a lot higher quality material even then, so you don't have to spin quite as fast. I normally pick up a leaf. I've got a piece of bark here now, just something to put underneath here. I've already drilled into this set, and you use this till you drill through. So once you get one fire out of a set, you can get the next one so super fast and easy. Okay. So this should come fairly easy. I may have to re-doctor the notch here a little bit as I get going. You have to have a drill bit, of course, and if you can find a round branch about the right size, of course, you're way ahead of the game. And I'll always like to tell people, too, in nature, I'll find a piece of a round limb and stuff, and I'll even drill into it like that. You don't need to split it or anything. This one has been split, but it's round on top. I've drilled through completely round branches, much like this piece of sassafras here. And since it's round, it does roll a little bit, though. So I've gotten to where I'll leave a little kickstand on there, so when I lay it down, that little branch will keep it from rolling around.
Cool.
So, but I use them round just like that a lot of times. I'll take and use these drill bits a lot of times when they get too short and drill into them and make fire. So they become the hearth. And I'll go through the parts here again. They call this normally the fireboard or the hearth. That's the piece we drill into. Then you have your drill bit, which is kind of obvious, and your bow. And then you need a steady piece. Rocks work the best. They probably last the longest, of course, because a piece of wood won't cut through here. I've used bone. I've used other pieces of wood, clam shells, just anything that's a little bit harder than the wood maybe. You could even use the same wood, but it would get a lot of friction up in here. I want to reduce the friction in the handpiece.
Okay.
And the other, I want to spin, get friction on it to build up the heat.
And that looks like a piece that came, a rock that came from an eroded, like stream bed.
Yeah, this is a stream rock, so it's already nice and round. You pick, it's kind of a personal thing in picking out your rock, because you kind of feel it and make sure it fits your palm. And to make the depression in it, again, you could use a drill, but I just sit down with another piece of quartz or something harder and peck and grind and just grind it out to its kind of shape I want. And from using it a lot, it's gotten pretty shiny in here because I'll take the drill bit and get oils from my face to lubricate this a little bit. If you ever killed an animal or have animal fat around, you can load it up a little bit in there, and it gets pretty smooth after a while. But just something just to reduce the friction up here.
Right.
So, but I've used a piece of bone before, like a knuckle end cap off of a bone, and it had all the natural fats and oils in it, and it worked for a long time before it finally wore through. But I didn't have to lubricate really because it had it built into the little knuckle joint of the bone.
That's cool.
The other part is just as important as all of this, of course, is your tinder, your bird nest. And in this, I've got a conglomeration stuff. I take cypress bark off the tree, and when I used to be a police officer, it's kind of neat. Bark would fall off the 18-wheelers a lot of times, and I would wait for a couple of weeks till cars trampled over it and ran over it thousands of times. They would shred it up a lot like this. And I'd pick it up once it got shredded up good.
Golly.
When I worked here, I would place bark over the trails, and the kids would walk on it and shred it up. So I'd kind of let nature do that for me.
That's pretty cool.
Because it is kind of messy doing this. If you do this a lot, you need a good bit of tendering on. I've got birch bark in here, which has little resins and chemicals in it. It's very flammable as well. This is something neat to know if you're starting a fire with a match or cigarette lighter. I've got cattail down in here somewhere. Anything dry, light, and fluffy. I've used goldenrod, seed heads, anything just dry and fluffy. I have even taken a clump of dried grass, just really fluff and I rough it up so it gets real small fibers. Just anything dry and fluffy is the best you can get. So I'll go ahead and get my bird nest ready.
Okay.
Get some of the prettier stuff put right in the middle.
Bird nest.
And we call it bird nest simply because when you kind of hollow it out here, it does look like a little bird's nest.
Neat.
And sometimes I'll take and put a little bit of cattail down like I've got here. I keep me a little seed head sometimes, and this stuff, of course, is fluffy as it gets pretty much. And just put down in there, and that really helps that little tiny baby coal kind of take off.
Where might you find a cattail for our young viewers out there?
Well, of course, Playcard's a swamp, so anywhere there's water, you're going to have cattails.
Okay.
So ditches, anywhere there's water, there'll be cattails around more than likely. And the seed heads last, you probably know as well as I do, they last for months and months and months on there for all the fuzz is gone. So they work as well, you know, a good long time. And you can see the way I just carried a little sausage head around with me, and it doesn't fluff up too bad if you don't abuse it. So it kind of stays, it doesn't all blow away on you.
That's neat.
So they got my bird nest ready. Like I said, I've already drilled into this set here, so I don't have to start from scratch, so this should make it a little easier. The last thing you have to have, of course, would be string. I don't normally worry about string so much because, you know, you're pretty much going to have shoelaces or things like that with you. Of course, knowing how to make string will be an advantage, and we may get to that later. But making a string strong enough to do this, you'd have to sit down and really spend some serious time if you didn't have string with you to make string strong enough for this, unless you had animal skin and used to rawhide, the animal skin stripped up and stuff. But you need a fairly decent string to do this with. So we'll get going and see what happens.
Okay. All right.
The fastest I've ever done this has probably been about 10 seconds to get this little baby coal down here. So let's see how I do today.
By the way, for you in the audience, it's not as easy as it looks when Ronnie does it. Lots of practice.
Already got a little bit of smoke going. The stance is super important as well as all your equipment. You can have all the right equipment, not have a good technique, and make it really difficult. I'm going to stop here and see if I've got it. I probably need to cut my notch a little deeper. That's right, I'm going to go ahead and stop now.
Hey, go look at that thing smoke. Woo!
We'll make a giant coal this time.
Oh, like dang.
And that's burning, but it's not burning as much as I want to. Like I said, I could be pushing a little too hard. And this is where I tell people the wood's actually kind of talking to me, and I have to listen. And I can see here, so this next time I try to slow down some, I can see there's little teeny microscopic splinters almost. So that tells me with this wood, I haven't used this wood in a while, I'm still probably pushing a little too hard. Sounds wild, but you can actually push too hard. So that's telling me now I need to not push quite as hard until right there at the end. So let's take it easy this time and see if we don't get it.
Okay.
So I very much do have to kind of listen to this wood and work within the laws of physics here.
Right.
They're in control, not me.
Definitely.
If I don't listen to them and follow them and understand what that wood's telling me, it's not going to happen.
It's an amazing feeling. So much patience.
When I do, I treat it like a puzzle, you know, a mystery. Each time this happens.
It's an amazing thing.
And it does, I guess, like you said, teach you a little bit about perseverance.
Definitely.
We got a massive coal there, I think.
Nice.
I think this might be basswood here. I don't think it is, but...
Oh, yeah, there we go.
But I just knew when I go and I picked this up, it felt kind of good. Got a pretty nice coal down there.
Fantastic.
And the cool thing is, even though I've been drilling a good bit, this wood is so soft, I'm not having to drill as hard. When I drill with cedar, you're drilling fairly hard. But even with cedar, I've done this in, like I said, 10 seconds or a little bit, maybe a little bit less. But I probably had a coal, but I keep drilling. Go ahead and get
that coal get bigger and bigger. It's just sitting there.
That's what's in it. It glues it together.
Okay.
If you disturb it too soon, I don't like to disturb it too soon because you went all that time and let it sit. And I have had them go out even here if your tinder's not prepared well enough. You know, you can do all that work and then it goes out. But like I said, when you're in a rush and teaching and...
Right. That's fascinating.
So add a little bit of extra oxygen here. Of course, you don't want to smother it by crumbling it too close. You could have your tinder too fluffy, too close, too compact.
Right.
A lot of things. I could breathe on it too much from the moisture in my breath.
Yeah.
So a lot of things play in here.
There's a lot of art into that too, sounds like. Man. Definitely a skill. Look at that glowing coal. Wow.
And of course, like I said, you can
That's amazing.
burn out an entire forest with that one little coal, or make pottery, tools, temper rocks,
Right.
bend wood. I mean, all kinds of things. Cook your food, see at night.
Amazing.
You know, the birth of our civilization kind of today, if you think about it.
Wow. So that's pretty much our #1 invention in all of mankind, basically, is the
Well, like I said, if you
creation of
look at
fire.
our society, how much we rely on metal and things like that, that's where it kind of came from. So to me, from a certain point of view, that's a pretty powerful invention right there. It gave light to darkness. So pretty powerful invention there that, especially if you were living out of doors, pretty much couldn't be without. You know, cooking your food, eating raw animals and stuff, the diseases and parasites that might come from that, the water supply. And
Definitely.
so,
Now, when you get your fire to that level, just as to show everybody, you're already getting a flame. You're getting something. A flame
Right.
is a gas, basically.
Right.
And it's causing real hot gas.
Right.
So, what kind of shape do you put your sticks in? Can we just for the audience here just show how we make maybe a little fire?
Sure.
Out of how you would lay or prepare a fire.
And Indian people use a lot. They built fires a lot of different ways, but for my personal use, and unless I'm doing something special, I need a fire for a special purpose, the tepee fire you can't beat.
A tepee fire.
A tepee fire, and that just means it's a inverted cone-shaped fire.
Okay.
And it gives off, you can have a little fire, the wood might be, the cone might be this high, but it gives off twice the height in flames.
Really?
And I also make a kind of an old-timey fire. It's called a keyhole fire. And the bed of the fire would be round, so I would put all my little tepee sticks kind of like so. And even laying the fire, and I teach that a lot too, knowing how to lay the fire is probably as important to know how to start one.
Right.
Because you could start a fire with, you know, match or cigarette lighter. If you don't know how to actually lay the wood out, you know, kind of prop them up. And I'll put little dried, fluffy stuff as you can find in the center of your tepee. And a lot of times I'll look at the wind blowing. Of course, today it's coming across this way. So I might leave the door of my tepee over here, because all when I stick my little tinder bundle in there, or a piece of fat lighter, I might make a splinter off over a splinter of wood that's dry, light that and put in there. The wind's going to blow the flames up into the back of the wood.
So leave the door open to
wherever the wind's coming from. That helps it light that much faster. And you start off with your little twigs and things like that, and of course then you get up to finger-sized stuff and whatever size fuel you want to go from there, what size fire you need.
Okay.
But a little tepee fire about this high will give off tremendous flames, height to flame, so you can see at night and cook on it. But I take it one step further. The door of my little tepee there, if you keep your tepee fire going the whole time, it's hard to bake or something on a tepee fire. So if you're frying or roasting, you know, you do that right over the flames. If you want to cook on coals, you need the coals. So with the coals will drop down in the middle, I'll dig out a little, this is where it gets called the keyhole fire. Looks like the old-timey keyholes. You got the round part and the little rectangular part coming out from it. And you rake all your coals from there, from the tepee fire out the door, in there to do your roasting and that type of thing on.
Cool.
So you got a dual-purpose fire.
That's really cool.
And it's just real handy for camping now, because the amount of flames it gives off at night that you can see by.
Can we show the audience, and we'll take a break here for a second, and maybe we'll cut into this, and let's make a little example of tepee fire right quick, and we'll cut back into it.
All right, we will.
Okay, let's do that. Okay. Okay, we're at this level here, and you've got explain this little fire you got here built, and what are we doing here?
Well, like I said, we kind of started off with a little tripod type thing. You can stick the rocks in the ground. This is getting hot. Let me smother that a little bit.
Okay.
Burning my hands. Just a circular fire, upside down cone, and we stuffed it. Again, the leaves are kind of damp out here today, so I put a little bit of bird nest material in there to help us out as well. If we really wanted to, we could take splinters of fat lighter, which of course is very flammable. They still make black powder and dynamite out of fat lighter stumps today.
Yeah.
So it's very flammable, a little gift we've been given in the southeast around here from the heart of your dead pine trees.
Real sappy wood.
Real sappy, very flammable, will light almost wet. You can cut little splinters of that, and of course you can get a fire almost out of anything if you get enough fat lighter. But we put a few little leaves in there, a little tender. We start off with little branches here, and even after this rain, they're still relatively dry. They can snap and crack. You can tell that they're dry. So, and we scraped that little place here, and you can have it bigger if you need it, but it's just a little model. But again, this little fire here, amazing as it is when we kind of build it up more as it got going, we'd have flames up about this high or so at night. Little teeny fire. And that was a little Indian saying, you hear people say today that white man build fire sit way back, Indians make little fire sit real close. And that's kind of somewhat true in a lot of instances. If you get the fire too big, you can't even sit close to it in cold weather. You have to keep turning around like a weenie to stay warm, rotisserie around. And so by building a little bit smaller fire, and I've been at those fires where you're way out there and having to turn around, we're all turning around talking like weenies on a grill.
Right.
And so this type of fire here, can do several functions here. So let's unsmother my little bird nest here. It's been smoldering this whole time that we've been preparing this, and we'll blow it back in the flame. And of course, it's very flammable now by sitting around and charring and smoldering and all. And again, you see we kind of calculated the wind. Oops, and it'll blow the flames back up into the thick of our fire.
Huh. So the wind's helping you out already.
Yeah, using what you've got. Using what you've got.
Awesome.
And of course, in warm weather around here, you still need a fire if you're living out of doors. The smoke actually helps keep away bugs. When I camp out real warm parts of the year, I actually stand over it. I'll put a lot of rotten or wet type stuff or leaves in it to smoke a lot. But that's the only time I do that. But I'll get in the fire and actually let it just permeate my whole body, and it helps keep the bugs away, and also covers your scent if you were hunting, that type of thing. So
smudge scent.
Fire, and it's kind of a cleansing thing too. So the smoke from the fire and that type of thing is real valuable to you, especially warm parts of the year. So
that's neat.
A little bit about the Tepee Fire. We probably should have stuffed a little bit more stuff in there, it being so wet.
Yeah.
That's just kind of the way it works.
Okay. Well, now they got the concept, they can make it on their own. Any scout groups or anybody that's going into camping the outdoors to benefit from this kind of knowledge, definitely. This is right after a rain, immediately after a torrential downpour. We just, and these things are burning. So that's wonderful knowledge there, Ronnie.
I've got a gourd here. Now, you wouldn't run off into the woods and find gourds growing wild today, but again, this is a container that worked very well, but even an animal skin could work for this type of container. You could take and burn out a bowl out of wood, and we'll show you one of those when we talk about a poplar tree in a little bit. And I've used turtle shells, which will tell you that one, the next step and all. But what I've done in here, I've placed in some what I call cooking rocks, or baked clay objects, they call them in some references. A man I apprenticed under, Scott Jones, calls them BCOs, baked clay objects. When you live in a stoneless land like we do pretty much around here, even picking up river rocks wouldn't work.
Right.
But now the trick about cooking like this, you'd never want to take a rock directly out of a stream because it's absorbed water.
Right.
And of course, steam engines, I think if I remember right, water has a compression ratio of like 6 to 1 or 20 to 1. Maybe it's 20 to 1, and gasoline is way lower than that. It might be 4 to 1 or something like that.
Wow.
So you take a rock that was just in the water, been in the water for some time, and all that water's in it, you throw it in the fire, and that water starts turning into a gas, expanding 20 times its original size. Rock piece is going to be blown up all over the place, scalding hot, you put your eyes out, catch the woods on fire, etc. Right. You also want to use glassy rocks, igneous rocks, because they'll explode as well, wet or dry, they'll still explode. But these river rocks up on high ground work well. But again, around here in the southeast, where there aren't a lot of natural rocks and all, you take your clay and a little bit of sand or temper, whatever you're using as temper. I make discs like this. They call them perforated discs or slabs. Soapstone works well. These are a couple that aren't hot right now, of course. But inside of here, we've got some that should be fairly orange right now from burning. You have to have a pair of tongs, of course, or something to fish them out of the fire. The advantage of having them with a little hole in them, though, is you can just spear them. They're not quite as awkward to pick up, so that was a little advantage.
Okay.
And some of the baked clay objects, if I can find one here, I've got a real cool one in here. It's just a cylinder of clay, and it's just, you can still see my finger grooves in it, where I just squished it and made it into a little cylinder, and they made them much bigger than this too, but cooking in a little pot like this, you don't need them too awfully big, especially to kind of backpack with, whatever. But I just take and place that directly from the fire, and you can hear that sizzling. I don't know if the audience can or not, but, and of course, if that's not boiling quite fast enough or cooking fast enough, we reach in our fire and pull out some more.
Can you see into this bowl right here with your camera?
I'll tilt it up in a second too, where he can see it. It'll get to boiling pretty fast here if these are pretty hot.
There's
and
just
these will
bubbles everywhere.
These will be glowing orange a lot of times. I'm sure they can hear that.
Yeah.
And like I said, this cooks way faster than a conventional stove because we're not heating up the container. We don't want to eat the pot.
Yeah,
we want to eat the contents. So I've even heard of somebody that backpacks in real high altitude areas that cooking with a stove, a little backpacking stove, doesn't work as well. So he'll take and build a fire and use rocks just like we're doing now.
Well, I'll be darned.
And of course you just have to have, I normally have like 7 or so of these, and you just rotate them in and out the fire. As they get cool, you got other ones in the fire and you're rotating them and everything. So let's go in and see if we can't get this. And believe it or not, the ashes really don't have any taste. They're pretty bland, maybe a little bit of lye, but the lye wouldn't hurt you at all anyway. Matter of fact, I actually have a theory that that little bit of lye you got from cooking in situations like this or cooking directly on the ashes probably help control some of the parasites. That little dose of lye you get every so often. So
look at
we've got boiling hot water here, and
amazing.
A short amount of time.
That didn't take, what, a minute and a half? You had boiling water. Wow.
So I call it microwave cooking because we're cooking from the inside out.
Cool.
We're heating up the inside of the contents of the pot, and it finally gets to the pot itself.
Isn't that neat?
But you can cook in animal skin. You could have just peeled the hide off of a deer, hang it up, or dig a hole and cook right inside the animal skin by doing this.
That is amazing.
So
isn't that
really, really neat way of cooking. And like I said, even if you had a metal pot, this is still faster than heating up the pot from the outside. If you were in real high altitudes, I've heard of a man doing that.
Huh.
So again, just real awesome science. And
can you tilt that up where some people can see it out there, what it's doing? If you can, you see it bubbling. Isn't that cool?
So
man,
works pretty well. And the amazing thing too is this gourd bowl. If you know much about gourds, I try to pick them out as thick skinned as I can when I select gourds for my primitive things. You know, a birdhouse doesn't matter if it's thin or not too much.
right?
But when you're doing stuff like this, dragging them around, you want them thick like wood, and it doesn't hurt the gourd at all. Huh. It's kind of the same principle you hear some people taking a styrofoam cup and put a cigarette lighter underneath it. The water keeps the plastic cool enough so the cigarette lighter won't burn it from the outside.
Huh.
And so kind of a neat way of cooking there. But I've cooked in turtle shells with no damage to the shell, gourds, wood bowls.
Right.
And it just works really well.
That is really amazing.
But even where you don't have rocks, you can make your own out of clay.
Well, even in a microwave oven, it takes, what, like several minutes for it to boil.
Yeah.
And you just boiled that in under, what, 45 seconds probably. Just boil it, man.
Yeah, I imagine it was like,
amazing.
said, a minute or so for the whole pot got to boiling. But right around that rock, of course, was really boiling. But I imagine right now I see a lot of it just still fizzing there like crazy. So,
right.
Like I said, I just take and rotate them out. We still have several of them in here, that, you know, little rocks. Now, of course, once you get the temperature up, then it doesn't take quite as big a ones to keep it going.
Ronnie, what are you you're about to attempt here? What's this?
Well, this is another method of fire making, and in some respects it's more complicated or sophisticated, but in others it's not. It's called the hand drill. The part that makes it less sophisticated is less equipment. This is the only thing I'm going to be using. No steady block, that rock that I had in my hand hold, no bow, no string. So a good straight piece of material, but now again, I've even overcome a straight piece of material here. It's kind of hard to find real straight material sometimes. So I've taken a piece of cane, or reed people call it, and I've socketed in a smaller piece of applicable wood. This might be yucca stalk here. And that way I don't have to have a long piece of yucca stalk. I can get by with crooked pieces and just kind of cut a straight section out and socket it into this piece of cane that goes really straight most of the time. So that way it kind of overcomes some obstacles with having an absolute straight piece of material. Drilling into the same type of board here of the See if I got another piece here. This might work here. But again, you just use your hand pressure with this one. And this is where you have to have real high quality material though. This is what makes this a little harder to see. There's a piece too I might can get by with. But we'll try this little piece here first. Techniques, the stance is kind of the same. Some people do sit with their legs kind of butterfly style, you know, foot to foot almost. But the thing I find is I can't put a lot of upper body pressure and weight on it like this. I can like this. So this is the way I prefer. There are some people that even float their hands, they call it. Their hands won't go down the shaft and all. I've experimented with that some, and I can do it a little bit, but this method here still works fine. So here it goes.
That is amazing.
And I hold it in place, come back up.
Just work your way down the shaft. Huh. Man.
And I'm not sure this cypress is probably a little too hard for the hand drill, but you saw we already had that smoke going and stuff. But
right.
I really need an even much softer material to drill into with this piece here as well.
Right.
So like I said, the only downfall to the hand drill is that your material you use has to be probably the highest quality material.
Okay.
Now you could use this steel for the bow drill because it's that soft and easy to use. But you can't use some of them the other way around because there's a little bit denser wood, a little bit harder wood.
Okay.
You just need that extra speed and pressure you can put with the bow drill and stuff. So that's the same technique, the bird nest, everything else remain the same.
That is amazing, man. That seems like a real good workout too, right there.
Well, I found out if you want to get your six-pack, you do this enough and coming down, your abs and all get a good workout, your chest, your pecs from compressing and stuff. It gives you a workout. I did a show one time, and I did like 10 or so of these in an evening.
Wow. And
I really found out instead of trying to use all muscle and brute force, I had to use technique so I wouldn't wear myself out.
Right.
So by doing that many over and over and over, it trained me to how to do it correctly instead of muscling through and that type of thing.
That is neat. Hey, Ronnie, this is a fascinating plant. How does it kind of relate to what we've been doing with the fire?
I think from what I understand about the history of this plant, it's probably a southwestern or western type plant. Now it's been brought over for many years. I'm not sure exactly if it's native. I don't believe it is, but it's naturalized here now for ever how long, and it's just a wonderful plant to the outdoorsman. I know out west, again, they use these tremendously.
And it's called what?
This one it's in the yucca family.
In the yucca family, okay.
And I think if I got the name of this right, it's called bear grass. And the leaves, these aren't real sharp and all. If you have the ones that grow up on a big stalk, I think that was called Spanish bayonet. It's a common name. If you back into that one, you'll know why it's called a bayonet.
Right.
It will stick through you just about with those sharp leaves, and they're pretty stiff. Well, these are pretty soft and all. The little tips on them and stuff aren't very sharp. They'll bend. And they have, you notice you were pulling off their little fibers off the edge of the leaves that kind of curl up and all.
Yes.
And I think upstate these grow a lot as well. Well, this stalk here was the very stalk I was using a while ago. This is a flower stalk. It's kind of an annual thing in the summer. So when they get a certain age, I guess, of maturity, they'll send up this stalk, and then they'll pretty much do it each year. And on it have these white flowers and sometimes have little date-like fruits.
Right.
Well, we can make fire with this stalk, like I was using a while ago. The leaves
for your drill, right?
For the drill, the hand drill or the bow drill. And again, sometimes you find them not quite the woody stiffness quality. This one feels a little soft here, so not all of them will work as well as others. Some of them will be real dense and hard. I guess they're a little bit more mature plant or whatever. And the leaves, of course, you could use them even green like now. I'm going to pull one off. You could even take this leaf green and strip it up, the little fibers inside. You can strip it right on down. And we can make, I've seen an article one time where made like 20 foot of cordage out of this one leaf.
Man.
Well, I can keep stripping this down, processing it even green and use it. It's actually stronger green if I really put enough work into processing it. It's just a lot of work and that type of thing. And you have to kind of take a green leaf off, living leaf off the plant. Well, I'm not in a survival situation, so I very rarely do this. I'll take and collect the dead ones that's on the bottom and are not getting the sunlight. They've kind of done their cycle. But you could take and braid this or cord it even, kind of a crude cording technique by folding in that type of thing. Or like I said, even braiding them or tying them end to end. But if you took these right now and wet them a little bit and braided them or whatever, and start roughing them up in your hands and all, you have soap on a rope, I call it.
Soap on the rope.
Because you have a soap-like substance in these leaves now. It's a very powerful cleaner.
Neat.
So fire from this plant, soap from this plant, a little date-like fruits you can eat.
Yeah.
And also one of the strongest vegetable cordages we have around, especially if you can find this plant. But like I said, it's not just everywhere. I think these have been imported and thrown away by people living here years ago. So it's not like, and then they've been naturalized, so you do find them in places now. But here's what the fibers look like if you take the leaves and really separate them and let them rot some even. It's called retting if you rot them underwater. And make really, really strong fiber out of it. You can see all the little threads in there.
Man,
and all the little fiber of the plant is gone.
Yeah.
And now you can cord this into some really nice rope right now, or twine or cordage, whatever you like to call it.
Really cool.
And the way you make your cordage, and this is going to be kind of crude stuff here, but I'm going to put these two together here because they're getting skinnier here. You twist it, I'm twisting clockwise, and you fold it in half. If I want to make a short piece like for a trap right now, if I want to make a long piece, I wouldn't fold it in half. But then I'm twisting clockwise, like a clock, and I'm wrapping it towards me. And I twist and wrap and twist and wrap and twist and wrap and just keep going. And after a little bit, you'll start seeing a little piece of a crude cordage coming out of here right now because I haven't thinned all this stuff down.
Fascinating.
And you just keep going. Of course, I can make my cordage as big as I want it, as long as I want it, as little as I want it.
So you're twisting it right.
I'm twisting like
clockwise, and then you're letting it go counterclockwise.
Right, so you're twisting it into itself.
Oh, okay.
If you ever had a piece of your little yellow strand rope or rope you bought before, it's 3-strand rope, and it comes unwound, you try to put it back together and you let it go and it undoes.
Right.
That's because you haven't twisted it into itself.
Okay.
The way you twist in one direction but wrap the other direction, I can let go of that and it won't come undone. So making cordage is probably the next skill that I think is of real high importance along with your shelter building and that type of thing. But the shelters that we build in a real primitive setting, though, are just what's laying around.
Right.
Well, this is kind of a refined skill here that, you know, is to make strong cordage, like I said, for the bow drill. You need to be able to make a pretty good strong cordage for that.
Now, can yucca be used for that?
Yucca is strong enough. I've heard of people making bowstrings out of it.
Wow.
And you know what abuse a bowstring, the shock and vibration it takes.
Right.
So it's strong enough to actually make bowstrings out of if you really process it green and get all those fibers out.
Cool.
Or red it, like I said, by rotting it, a controlled rotting process in the water. And that's the way I do poplar bark when we talk about that, is put the bark underwater for a couple of weeks in warm weather, and then without oxygen it rots it in a controlled process, and this layer after layer of fibers start coming out. You can do this leaf much the same way. It doesn't destroy the fibers, but all the stuff around the fibers, all that cellulose material and whatever the plant has. But this is kind of, I guess, what you call the support structure of the leaf.
Right.
The strong part, and all the rest of it's the tissue that actually makes it alive.
That's the vascular tissue you're looking at here.
Right.
Carries the water and nutrients.
So when we say we make rope out of bark and that type of thing, it's not what you see on the outside, but those inner layers that give the tree its strength and that type of thing. The outer bark, I guess, would be more of a skin,
layer.
just a protective layer to keep it safe. And the inside layer is where we get the strength from.
Neat.
So a little piece of rope, you can see it starting to look a lot better now.
That's cool.
As we get going.
Man, that is amazing. That is really cool. Wonderful. Rope right there out of nature from a plant. That's cool. All right, this month's species of the month is the Tulip Poplar, also known as the Yellow Poplar. Pick your name, they're both the same tree. Basically, this tulip poplar that we have behind us is a good representative of one you may see growing near your local woods somewhere around your neighborhood. They're a very fast-growing tree. They can attain heights of up to 200 feet. Their bases and trunks can be as big as 20 feet across in the mountains of North Carolina. In Joyce-Kilmer National Forest, you'll see those. Pristine, virgin forest stands full of poplar like we see behind us. Yellow-bellied sapsuckers love to come along and bore holes into the wood, and they let the sap come out and let the insects stick to it, and they'll go along and they'll kind of mine those sticky little pore holes for the insects that come and are attracted to their sap. As you can see, it's called a tulip poplar because it's got a tulip-like shape to the leaf, as well as a tulip-shaped flower. And if you came out here in the springtime, you'd see all these flowers laying all around the ground right here. Of course, now it's fall, and the yellow poplar here is turning bright yellow In about a few weeks, all of these leaves here will be bright yellow just like this. But everything looks like a tulip on that tree, and that's why they call it either the tulip or the yellow. We'll just call it the yellow tulip poplar. That'd be easy. And Ronnie Floyd here is going to talk to us a little bit about the uses of the plants. And to him, I think all these plants mean something completely different than many of us. Many of us may just know the name or something interesting about it. He has lived these plants, and this is kind of one of the more unique plants and more useful plants to the Native Americans. Ronnie, how will the Native Americans use this plant right here?
Well, an immediate use of it would be that the bark comes off this tree extremely easily in the springtime when the sap starts flowing. And you can peel it off the entire tree in one sheet, basically. And small trees and that type of thing, you can peel it, split down one length of the tree and peel it off completely, and you just got a hollow log of bark.
Huh.
That would be used for making your wigwams and shelters, that type of thing. Work really well, very durable and that type of thing. And poplar trees, when they get pretty big, don't have very many branches on them, so no knot holes and stuff. One of the other quick, immediate uses is the berry basket, they call them, or berry buckets.
That's neat.
The cool thing about this basket is that, and this is off a fairly young tree. I normally kill the tree though, because you'd have to have a larger tree to get a piece of bark off this width, and you could peel it off without killing the tree. But I'll go in thick stands and we'll consume the whole tree. Because like I said, we use it for bowl burning. I think you got one of the bowls there. Use the wood for bowl burning, use it for bow drill kits. We use it for spoon making and all by letting fire burn down in there like you would a canoes the same way. A large tree could be made a canoe out of, but let fire burn down in there. So, and the colonists as well as the pioneers found the same uses of this tree, you know, because it is so light and knot free. The wood doesn't have a resinous taste like we talked about already, that sappy and stuff. So if you cooked in it or ate out of it, it wouldn't taint your food or make it have an odd taste. But this basket here is fascinating because this tree was only about this big around.
Wow.
And this basket, and really a small basket or a large basket, doesn't take that much difference time to make, but you peel the bark off, you split the tree down like taking a shirt off almost, and of course it's really wide. So that's the reason this is such a small tree, because we just open up the circumference of that bark flat. I cut a football design in the bottom of it, just cutting through the outer bark, that corky protective layer like you said earlier. We don't cut through those strong fibers, that cambium layer, that inner bark.
Okay.
And I cut that football design. It comes out on both sides and basically half of the bark. So this bark was probably about that long when I cut it. Maybe slightly longer because the width of you measure from here and across, you know, all the way around. And that would be the length of this piece of bark. And that little football design, when I fold that bark up, it makes that little concave shape on the bottom there. Or actually convex, I think, isn't. But anyway, and just lash the sides together and let it dry and cure out, and it gets nice and hard, and an instant basket.
Hey, we'd all like to give a hand to Ronnie Floyd here. Here in just a little while, we're going to give him a way to get some information out to you all in the audience there about some special events that they are going to be hosting here in about a few weeks. What is that special event coming up right there?
We have our annual powwow, and it's been on Thanksgiving weekend for many, many years, but we've been rained on almost every single year. And our chief, Buster Hatcher, looked back on the calendar for 10, 15, 20 years, and every other weekend in November it rains.
Right.
So it doesn't matter when we have it in November, we probably get rained on. Well, thanks to us, the Waccamaw Indian people, though, a couple years ago, we ended the drought. It hadn't rained for months. We have our powwow. As soon as we get in our circle that day, boom. So that year, us bringing rain was a good thing. Not great for our powwow and us trying to raise a little money, but it was great for the local people. We even got thanked for that by some politicians, I think. They said we brought the rain. But this year, we moved it to Halloween weekend. And again, there's powwows going on all the time, so we try to get weekends that nobody else is having one conflict with. But if you'd like to come see these types of things and the dancing and the regalia, their clothing that they wear, their dance clothes and what we call dress clothes, so to speak, their regalia is just beautiful. And getting to talk to some of these people now, and so, again, some of the perspectives that we don't necessarily see as an American, the way we've been brought up with our the concrete world we kind of live in, the asphalt jungles and stuff. It's kind of neat to step inside of a teepee with a fire and the flutes and just what you can go out in your backyard and do yourself.
That's neat. Fantastic. Is there any other information that you'd like to give the audience about maybe something that you're trying to do in the future as far as with these technologies and things?
Well, I've got some dates already on the calendar that I'm open to doing certain classes. You know, you can come spend Friday night / Saturday, even Sunday and type thing, you know, a 2 or 3 day weekend and Friday evening type, and then 2 day weekend stuff, and sit around the fire at night and we can learn and take classes, you know, and I can even customize if a group comes to me of 5 or more. You know, if I get up to about 10 or so, I normally have another instructor help me in that type of thing. But if somebody came to me, called me up and said, hey, we want to learn this and we've got a group, or if they just give me their number and stuff, I can get back with them as well. But my telephone number is area code 843-756-0485. My email is botter, like brother of the otter, and it's all small letters, BOTTER @sccoast.net.
Okie doke.
But they can get in touch with me that way. But I'm open to doing programs for that type of thing. I may start actually, when I get time, to type up some programs and start advertising. But I'm always available to do a customized program for a group if they come and say, hey, we all want to do this. And
right.
You know, I can tell them what I can work out, and we work out a date, and it wouldn't have to be a date I've got already. It's just I kind of randomly picked kind of one a month right now that would fit and no conflicts with, but I'm always open to that type of stuff.
Sounds good. I know you've been a big help with me out here, getting my wings under me in environmental education and helping kind of help on the side, mentor of different philosophy of how maybe I was brought up and things like that. It's a very neat, unique perspective on life. And if you guys would like to get into that, contact Mr. Floyd here. Ronnie would be more than welcome to help you out. For Forever Wild, my name is Ben Roadkill Abercrombie. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time with another interesting environmental education topic from the Horry County Schools. Have a good day.